So we've got this fascinating story for you today. It's all about how a tiny, almost ridiculously small choice can kickstart a huge personal transformation. We're calling it the 5 Yuan Experiment. But first, let me ask you something and be real with yourself. Do you ever feel like this? Kind of mentally scattered, like you're being hit with information from all sides, and you feel this deep exhaustion that a good night's sleep just won't shake. If you're nodding along, yeah, you are definitely not alone. It's kind of the default setting in our world today. And what's the first thing we're always told? Just make up your mind, right? Find more willpower, be more disciplined. But what if that's completely backwards? The idea we're exploring today suggests that real, lasting change, it starts somewhere completely different. Sometimes it can start with something as small as this, 5 yuan. I mean, that's less than $1. So how on earth could this tiny amount of money possibly change a person's entire daily rhythm? Well, let's dive in. It all kicked off with a simple little challenge on a reading app. So the first step wasn't some grand, life-altering decision. It was just a very small, very doable action. And the rules were just brilliantly simple. You had to read for 30 hours, spread out over 29 separate days, all inside a 30-day window. And the prize for doing it? Pretty minor, just a few digital book coins. See, it was never really about the reward. It was all about the clever design of the game. And this right here gets to the absolute core of the struggle. For most of us, the problem isn't that we don't have enough to read. We're practically drowning in content. The real challenge is finding that consistent, stable reason to just start, to just open the book day after day. Which leads us to the most genius part of this whole experiment. Its design. This is a system that's literally built to work without you having to rely on brute force willpower. Okay, let's break this down because the psychology here is just so smart. First off, the cost is basically nothing, so there's no financial stress. The rules are crystal clear, you know exactly where the finish line is. The reward, even though it's small, is guaranteed. And the cost of quitting? It's not some huge, crushing failure. It's just a little bit of shame. It's a masterpiece of a gentle nudge. This quote from the source just nails it. The system doesn't demand you become a whole new person overnight. It doesn't yell at you to be more disciplined. It just gives you this tiny, consistent, gentle push in the right direction. So, what happens when you actually follow that gentle push day after day? Well, the results were honestly staggering. And the rewards went way, way beyond a few digital coins. I mean, just look at these numbers. In a single month, this little challenge sparked 44 hours of reading. That's more than an hour a day. 3 whole books were finished, and a whopping 19 hours were spent on one really deep book, Rousseau's Confessions. And that experience, it led to a reward that no app could ever offer. This wasn't just about reading facts. It was about real self-discovery. When you read something that's so brutally honest, it's like it holds up a mirror. And suddenly it becomes impossible to keep telling yourself the same old stories, the same old lies. And a realization like that totally shifts the conversation, doesn't it? It stops being about the simple act of reading and becomes about something much deeper. This idea of a mental diet and how we're actually nourishing our own minds. This brings us to a really critical distinction. Think of it like a diet. On one side, you have the cheap mental junk food, the short videos, the clickbait, the instant feedback. It gives you a quick rush, but it leaves you feeling empty and tired. And on the other side, you've got real, true mental nourishment, high-density stuff that actually restores you and leaves your mind feeling settled. This is such a crucial idea. We often think that to recover from stress, we need to escape or distract ourselves. But true restoration, true recovery, comes from giving our minds the space to just quiet down, to settle. When your mind is properly fed, problems start to resolve on their own, instead of you having to constantly push them down. Okay, so this is where the real magic happens. Because what started as just a simple reading habit didn't stay a reading habit. It set off this incredible, powerful chain reaction that rippled out into other parts of life and thought. You can see the progression so clearly. It begins passively, right? Just reading. But then that turns into something more active, leaving notes, making comments. That act of engaging sparks deeper thinking. And before you know it, a whole system of ideas starts to take shape. And here's a perfect kind of wild example of that. While reading a book on complexity, a single sentence suddenly created this unexpected bridge between Einstein's theory of relativity and an ancient Buddhist concept. Now, that's not a random lightning bolt of genius. That's the direct result of feeding your brain high-quality, complex stuff. So the crucial point is this. Inspiration isn't some magical force that just shows up out of the blue. No way. It's the natural outcome of a process. It's what gets forced out when you consistently give your mind a stream of meaningful input. So let's bring this all home. What's the big lesson here? The story might be about a 5 yuan reading challenge, but the principle underneath it is absolutely universal. When you really think about it, what did that 5 yuan actually buy? It wasn't just books. It bought a starting ritual to anchor the day. It bought a system for being consistent that didn't drain your willpower. And maybe, most importantly, it bought a whole new rhythm for life, a shift from feeling restless and anxious to a state of clarity and calm. And you know, this new mental rhythm had real physical effects on the body. A lighter appetite, more stable emotions, a sense that desires weren't so overwhelming anymore. We forget how connected our mind and body are. When the mind settles, the body follows. And this might be the most important takeaway from this whole thing. We get so obsessed with big, dramatic changes, but we consistently severely underestimate the incredible power of a tiny system, just doing its thing, day in and day out over time. Which really just leaves us with one final question to think about. For the person in this story, it was a 5 yuan reading challenge. For you, it could be anything. So what is your small enough, light enough thing? What's that one tiny action you could start to gently push yourself forward?